SMG Solar Music Group presents Ladder Leaf. His debut single, available now on all streaming platforms. Keep it pushing. Make sure you download and stream. This is Music Matisse. Welcome to another amazing, astounding, fabulous episode of our podcast. This is the In Studio Podcast. I am Music Matisse. We are joined today when it comes to music producers, the way technology has changed the industry. We're joined by a gentleman today who has definitely been putting in the work, but he is definitely someone that you have to keep an eye out for. He's on the verge of becoming what I personally think is one of the most, for lack of a better word, no pun intended, astute and prolific producers. He's definitely got a great start. Put your hands together and welcome to In Studio, the one and the only. Amplified is in the building today.
Thank you, bro.
What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Just getting a little day of rest in. I've been busy lately, so I've been just kind of hanging out today, doing some stuff around here. But right. My pleasure joining you today.
Now, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, man, and we're not going to hold you long. We just want to get a good interview with you, though. Right. For people who are seeing you for the very first time, when they come across this interview, I always like to start from the beginning. Where are you from? Give us a little background on where you're from and just the type of environment surroundings you grew up in.
Okay. Actually, I'm from a little town just north of Tucson, Arizona called Oracle. I was born in Tucson. I've been raised here. I've been here with my family for 38 years now, man. So I spent my whole life here. Desert environment. I mean, it's totally opposite of any type of city, big city. You know, I live in a little town of about 3,000 people. So it kind of came from a different environment than a lot of, typical producers that I've, been in touch with. But I always had a deep connection with music. So just growing up, I still had access to all these different styles and sounds of music that whether it was my parents playing or my brother played, but I was introduced to a wide variety of stuff at an early age. So being out here, even though I was, away from LA or, New York or some of these big cities, I was still exposed to all the sounds and stuff that was coming from there.
Oh, okay. What was your first experience with the culture of hip hop? What was it and what was it like?
Well, my first introduction had to have been through my brother. I have an older brother who's about 9 years older than me. And he loved hip hop. He loved West Coast. He loved East Coast. And so we were raised in a pretty strict house, Christian household. So I wasn't allowed to listen to it. He would sneak tapes and different stuff. So that was kind of how I was able to hear stuff. But the first stuff I really remember hearing was like, which is crazy. It was like NWA, Ice-T. So this is like late 80s. I'm only 6-7 years old. Right. But I remember listening to Ice-T, Ice Cube, NWA, and then early in the 90s, Dre, Cypress Hill, House of Pain, stuff like that. Just different, like a lot of different stuff. Brand Nubian. So kind of a different. He was kind of all over the place, but that was my first introduction into the music side of it. So, and like I said, being from a strict house, I couldn't listen to that except unless I was off somewhere with him. But he also had like Christian rap tapes. So there was a lot of old Christian rappers and stuff like that who I could listen to around my mom and my dad. So even though I wasn't allowed to listen to some of the secular stuff, I was still always listening to rap stuff. So.
Did you have like a feeling upon first hearing it? In other words, I guess what I'm really asking is, did you think when you first started to listen to hip hop, even with the restrictions that, your parents had in reference to you being a young child, did you ever think back then that you would be in the position that you are in right now?
Not in those initial moments. I mean, I did have a feeling it was something different than any other style of music I'd heard, and it made me feel good and made me, dance and, as a little kid, just kind of went crazy with the music. But it wasn't until later that I really felt like, man, this is something I want to be a part of. You know, this is something I want to contribute to, and you know.
Okay. Now, realistically and honestly, being a part of this, you are, like I said, and we're going to get to this a little later on, you are definitely very well established, connected upon your initial entry into the game. How long have you been actually producing music?
I started actually producing in '01, so we're going on 20 years, man.
Wow. Wow.
I was a senior in high school. In 2001, I graduated, and that's when I got my first like keyboard, and I got an MPC about a year later. So, and I was just learning it. It took me a while. I mean, I wouldn't say that I was doing it, you know, obviously professionally, but I started making music and working with little artists here and there since 2001. So it's been a long, you know, a long journey.
Right. Right. And that's something that I've heard in the past Jay-Z quote, and he said, you know, people in love with the finished product, but they don't understand the process. So it's 2001, you get the equipment, the keyboards, you start, I would assume, teaching yourself how to actually, you know, get familiar and create.
Right.
How long between 2001 and your very first notable placement as a producer?
Notable. I was, like I said, back then I was just learning, doing stuff. The first thing that I would consider notable was when I hooked up with King T from out here or from Compton. And that was through MySpace. And I think that was 2005 or late 2005. And I was just, you know, I basically had messaged all the people that I wanted to work with, the people I liked, and a few would hit me back. He was one of the first artists that hit me back, said, I'd love to hear some stuff. I sent some songs over, and he recorded a track called The Crown that ended up on a mixtape or something he did, but it was him. And it also had BG Knockout had just been released. So I had him on it. And I think Dresta was on it as well. So to have those three on a track for me was huge, you know what I mean? So that was probably the first time I remember being like, wow, this is, you know, exciting, and really made me want to work harder and do more, and, you know, get more stuff out there.
That was pretty much the I would say the first, second, third grade, the elementary period of the internet boom as far as music was concerned. Did it require that you actually fly out and meet him face to face, or was everything pretty much done online?
It was online. It was online. It was just I'm trying to think back then, because even with that in early MySpace, which I think for me was 2005, like I said, being out here in Oracle, the internet was super slow. So even trying to send MP3s and stuff wasn't, you know, it took way too much. So I was still sending out CDs at that time. So I think I sent him a CD of tracks. I think that's how we first did that. And then he hit me back, and I sent the files. I think I had to go to a studio and track that out here, and then send him the files like that. So, and I did that quite a bit in those days, and you know, it's totally different. And like you said, it just reminded me too of even getting equipment. A lot of the people I know nowadays that are doing music or starting in music with YouTube and different tutorial stuff. I mean, you can get in it and get knocking stuff out quick. And back then, I remember messing with these keyboards and the drum machines for hours and hours and days and months, and learning, you know what I mean? Learning just little stuff. And so it's a different time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I would say though that most, and particularly in the region of the country that you're in, most people would say, most up and coming producers would say, whether it's today or back then, that was that was a nice foot to have in the door with somebody that's of the status of a King T. And then you got Knockout, you got Dresta. I mean, that's not bad coming into the game, man.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. That was big for me.
Yeah. How did you feel during that time? Did you believe it at first, or did it take a moment to like just sink in, or did it just like hit you all at once out of the blue one day, like boom?
It kind of, at first I was just surprised, you know what I mean? That was, like I said, my first real interaction, and him responding the way he did. Because when you're doing stuff and being out here, like I felt secluded quite a bit. Even now, I'm still out here. There's a lot of times where it's just me, and I don't
Right.
get feedback all the time. So it can lead you to question, is this really sounding good? You
Right.
got family around that love everything you do, and they're just saying, oh, it's great. But I think that was a real validation for me back then to say, wow, okay, so this is someone who's been around, he's worked with the greatest, and he chose something,
Mm-hmm.
and felt like it was good enough to not only have him on, but have those features. So it
Right.
was it was a little overwhelming in the beginning, but like I said, it kind of really motivated me to work harder.
SMG Solo Music Group, along with Mix Mafia DJs, presents Throwback Mafia Volume 1, featuring Philadelphia's own Ladder Leaf, hosted by none other than platinum producer Ron G. Well, you definitely putting in some work, man. That's
Yeah.
for sure. As we like I said, we're gonna get into that because for the people who don't know, when we start to run down your resume, that's gonna blow, a couple of minds. I'm sure it's gonna make a couple of people do a double take of the screen and like, what did they say? They just said this one, that one. So we're gonna
Right.
get there. You mentioned your older brother. Do you have any other siblings?
No, just him, just my older brother Ruben. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So from a family perspective, what's the family's perspective of where you are now versus when you first started out? How do they feel about this multi-platinum Grammy nominated producer that you are at this point?
Right. I mean, their support, they support me the same way now that they did back then. My parents have
Mm-hmm.
been such a huge support.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily I still have them. And you know what I
Right.
mean? From day one though, I was living at home. When I graduated from high school, I was working part-time,
Mm-hmm.
and really pursuing music, really going hard and trying to do stuff. And they supported me, man, through a lot of years of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
traveling back and forth. They paid for a lot of my trips out to Cali, and when I was not making anything. So, and to this day, if I needed something, they would, But
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a position now where I'm able to try to give back as much as I can to them, man, because I still like it. It's special to have people. I know a lot of people that don't have that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So for them to be there and believe in me, and they believe, like even the times where I didn't believe in, my mom would, get on me and encourage me and push me to, keep going. Something's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen. So
Right.
it's been cool.
I would imagine though that especially with your parents and your brother as well, but definitely with your parents, it's gotta kind of make them, have a little extra sense of pride and the chest gets poked out a little bit. Those conversations that we as their children may not hear.
Right.
Whether it's at the poker games or the bridge games or any kind of social events they're doing with their family and friends that are, of their generation. Like, well, what's so and so doing? What's so and so doing? What's this one doing? Oh, well, Amplified, he just got nominated for some Grammys. He's gone platinum with this. He's working with Snoop. He's working here and there. I would imagine that definitely has to make them feel good.
Yeah, I know, especially for my brother, because I hear from different people that we may be around that they
Mm-hmm.
heard something, he sent them a text or he forwarded them a song or an album or something like that I worked on. So he's super proud, and I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for him. Like I said, my
Right.
parents supported me,
Mm-hmm.
but the introduction to music was, I mean, hip hop was from him. He bought me
Mm-hmm.
my first keyboard. Um,
Wow.
that was in like 96. It was a little Yamaha DJX
Mm-hmm.
that you could track on and you could actually record tracks. So that was my first keyboard. When I went to go get a keyboard, one of these actually,
Mm-hmm.
I had no credit, nothing. He went and got a Guitar Center card for me
Mm.
and bought this Triton. And so like he's always believed in me, just the same, man. So I'm very blessed to have a close, tight-knit family that has, believed in me from the beginning.
Absolutely. Salute to him. What's his name again?
Ruben.
Ruben from SMG Solo Music Group and the hip hop community worldwide. Thank you for introducing your younger brother to hip hop. We are definitely appreciating it, brother. Believe me. And we're going to continue to do that. So you move right along, you get the King T situation. What comes after that? And I'm asking this question because I talk to younger producers that are just getting started, like within the last 24 months, 9 months, 6 months. They seem to have, because of the way technology moves today, they seem to have a perception that the only thing they have to do is use the phone or use an app to make a beat. And the industry is just going to start coming at them like gangbusters.
Yeah.
And as you said, you took years and taught yourself the development of the equipment, how it worked, how to create your own sound. What do you think as far as, well, back to the original question before I get to that one. how long did it take between King T and your next placement?
Um, it was a while. I made quite a few connections from that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Dresta being one of them, who we
Right.
started working on quite a bit of stuff. We've probably got at least, I'd say, 6 or 7 tracks, maybe
Mm-hmm.
more, that we did in the next couple months together. So that
Okay.
was a relationship that was built from that.
Right.
Another one, artist by the name of Young Melee,
Mm-hmm.
King T hooked me up with him as well, and he was
Mm-hmm.
from. He had just gotten done doing the Grand Theft Auto, the San
Okay.
Andreas game, so
Yeah.
he was kind of moving that into the thing. Um, and then, like I said, so that kind of kept me busy for a few months. But these were all guys that didn't really have record deals. Everybody was just kind of putting little stuff out here and there.
Right.
So it was, even then, back then, I figured, okay, well, this will, lead to this, and this will lead to that, and it didn't happen like that. I had to get busy.
Mm-hmm.
I had to get back to work. I had to, that he picked, to me, was my best track at the time. So when I started working on
Mm-hmm.
music, it's like, I got to make something better than that. All these other tracks that I have that I've been working on, like, it kind of it pushes you into overdrive. For me, it did.
Mm-hmm.
So it was probably, I'm trying to think of what the next actual placement was. It may have been something with Daz. And that
Okay.
was a relationship. I met Daz even before King T. Actually, I had some interaction with Daz
Mm-hmm.
back when I first started in probably '02. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and that came from online. I think one of his, back in the day, Daz used to run a forum off of his website, Dog Pound website. And so
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of interact it. And I remember, I think I bought some Dog Pound shirts, and he messaged me on there just thanking me for buying them. So I was like,
Right.
hey, I said, I'm an up and coming producer, would you like to hear some music? And he goes, yeah. So he said, give me an address. So I sent a CD.
Mm-hmm.
I got a call one morning. I was asleep. I got a call, and I remember picking up the phone. He says, hey, is this Amp? I said, yeah. He goes, this is Daz. And I was like, I was half asleep, and it didn't process, man. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
who's this? He goes, it's Daz. He goes, I got your CD. So I like jumped up real quick. That was one of my first real, like, to me, big time rapper hit me up,
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, I love the music. I want to do some stuff with you. So I was like, cool, let's do it. So he said, just send me some more. He goes, I want to sign you. I want to do this. I want to do that. So I'm like, okay. I mean, this is really young producer. This is me a year into it.
Right.
So I'm sending stuff. I think this is the big break. And it happened really quick. That was only a year in. So, but then it was just like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And he was really busy. Think about him doing the independent stuff back in the early 2000s.
Right.
He was
Oh,
all
yeah.
over. He was in Atlanta. He was out here. So I got kind of lost in all of that. I remember his number changed, and I thought, what the heck? And I couldn't get in touch with him. And so years later,
Mm-hmm.
I think just through internet or email or something, we ended up talking again. He was like, oh man, yeah. He said, this and that. But I ended up doing some stuff with him, which was probably '07, '08, we reconnected. And
Mm-hmm.
so it took, it was a couple years, even from the King T. I did a lot of independent stuff here and there with guys, but as far as a placement,
Mm-hmm.
it was just kind of, nothing really happened, man. It took a long time.
It took a while. But that's a good point, though. And that was one of the reasons why I asked that question, because, for the youngsters that are listening, like, you have to keep going no matter
Yes.
what. You can't be discouraged. You have to put in the work, and you have to keep
Right.
going. No matter how many doors are slapped in your face, slammed in your face, closed in your face, whatever, you got to
Yes.
keep it going. You
Absolutely.
really do. But you're doing well, with the connections you're making, the place
Right.
and everything. Um, you were actually during that time period when the internet boom started to really happen.
Mhm.
So, what do you think compared to how things were when you first started, as to how they are now, as far as the pace, the procedure, the quickness, the availability of music? Do you think it's too much versus 10, 15, 20 years ago? Or do you think it's just the pace that we're moving as far as society and humanity?
I think everything is going that way at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I personally think it is a little too fast. I wish it
Mm-hmm.
would kind of just, take it a little easier, but it's kind of where everybody is. for me, if it was like that back then, I can't say whether or not I would have adapted or fit right in, or I don't know. My journey has happened just the way I feel it was supposed to. And
Right.
I can imagine back 10, 15 years ago thinking, man, I wish it would just happen. But maybe I wasn't ready back then.
Right.
I feel like the timing, even when, I feel like everything had its proper timing, whether it was meeting somebody, whether it was a door closing that I thought was the one.
Hmm.
I mean, I have countless stories of where, I had people tell me something and me think that this is it. This
Right.
is the break. This is this is what I've been praying for. This is what I've been believing for. And, it closed just as fast as it opened. So like I said, in this part, being here now, I'm content and content in knowing that the timing is right. But now I really want to get busy because I know, having made a placement here, having made a placement there, I know that I have to work, even harder now to get the next one.
Right. Now, speaking of that, as far as the work ethic, how you've developed as a producer, who has been an influence that we would know on the production side, as far as whether you met them or not, but just from their music and their production style, who has been an influence on you?
Man, there's so many. I think, like I said, with the variety that I was introduced to with my brother, I
Hmm.
always really go back to those first ones because I think that's what really touched me. So Dr. Dre
Hmm.
definitely was one of the first that really stood out. And back then, I didn't know who made the music.
Hmm.
I just knew it was music. It wasn't until I got older that I started understanding credits and the producers and who really contributed. But Dre, big time. Um, Daz, with the Dog Pound stuff and even the stuff that he may have done with Dre and Snoop.
Right.
Uh, DJ Muggs was real influential, who was doing all the Cypress Hill stuff and some of the House of Pain stuff.
Hmm.
And I mean, Quick, to me, the West Coast sound is something that really, really touched me and in a different way than some of the more hip hop or East
Hmm.
Coast stuff, I should say, with the drums and the melodies. And then Battle Cat for sure has been one of probably my biggest influences musically.
Okay. Now we know the affiliation and the connection with Cat. Have you had a chance to work with Muggs? Have you had a chance to work with or even conversate about production with someone on the level of a Dr. Dre?
No,
Okay.
Dre is somebody I've never met. I would love to meet and
Hmm.
talk to, just be around, kind of
Hmm.
soak that up.
Right.
Um, DJ Muggs, I've never talked to. I've had no connection with. I mean, but those are, like I said, to me, those two really stood out. Daz, definitely. We've actually worked on quite a bit of stuff together and
Hmm.
have a really good relationship. Aside from music,
Hmm.
and like I said with Cat, yeah, for sure, man. So I know spending the time I have with him,
Hmm.
that I've learned so much just being in the room with him, just watching and not even, him having to show me this or that. So that's why I feel like anybody that gets a chance to be around somebody that, does music, and it doesn't have to be some legend, but if you can be around somebody that you can learn from, man, I definitely encourage any new young producers to be mentored by somebody.
Right. And that's when you were saying you've learned so much, you referring to Battle Cat and Daz
Daz
or
for sure.
okay.
More so Cat, just because we spent more time. Me and Daz have just shot stuff back. We're constantly sending music back and forth. But and a lot more so now too, me and Cat, just because of with everything that's gone on the past year. I haven't been out
Hmm.
there. I haven't been to Cali for almost 2 years. So
Hmm.
everything's just been kind of done online. But
Right.
being in the room with somebody, you can't beat that.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. Before we get into the different artists that you've actually produced for, this is 2021. Society basically went crazy last year. We faced COVID, we faced the protests for police brutality, we faced a lack of toilet paper, if you will,
Yeah, real.
not knowing, how this thing was going to turn out. Um, did any of this affect you as a producer or directly, just as far as you and your family? And if so, how are you holding up through all of this?
Yeah, I think it affected everybody, obviously in different ways. I
Hmm.
was lucky enough to still be able to work through everything and still provide for my family. I know a lot of people lost jobs and
Mm-hmm.
couldn't pay bills. I know a lot of crazy stuff going on. So I'm definitely feel blessed to have been able to push, through with the job and financially.
Mm-hmm.
But mentally, yeah, for sure. The creativity kind of, sometimes you don't feel like turning stuff on, sometimes you don't feel
Right.
like working on anything. It and at the same time, during different times of the year, it pushed me to get in there and say, hey man, we got time and nobody's moving. If we
Mm-hmm.
can just get in our studios and knock some stuff out, it definitely, like, it pushed me to get some other stuff done and started. So it worked both ways. The biggest thing, the health of me and all my family, we've been good, man. So that's been my biggest, blessing through it all.
Right. Yeah, because it was just like, I mean, between the election, I mean, I don't even have to run it down. We all lived it.
I'm
It's just
sorry.
been crazy, crazy, crazy.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What is your, just for the specifics, because I got a question behind it. What is your ethnicity?
Half white, half Mexican, and I mean, a kind of a mixture of everything, but
Mm-hmm.
I say 50, half white and Hispanic. So
Okay. With that being said, have you felt any backlash with what's been going on in the past year as far as your peers in the industry? Or have you ever dealt with any type of reverse racism, if you will, being in an industry that's primarily looked at as being dominated on the production side for the most part in hip hop, as something that's quote unquote an African American genre of music, even though we know that it's pretty much not the case because hip hop is worldwide. But have
right.
you directly dealt with any of those situations throughout your career, and particularly in this past year, the way things have gone?
I haven't really. I mean, there's been a couple little things here and there that I experienced
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger in it or starting
Mm-hmm.
out in it. It was nothing like that I ever really thought twice about. It was nothing major.
Right.
I think it was more laughable in the
Mm-hmm.
things, like where people would come around and be like, they would think that I was just like the runner at the studio,
Right.
something like that. And there was a couple of times where I was with Battle Cat and
Mm-hmm.
someone had come in the room and was like talking about the track that was playing through the speakers, and they thought it was him, and someone had mentioned something to me about grabbing something or doing something like that, and he was like,
Mm-hmm.
he goes, this is him. He's like, and the guy was like, oh, well, my bad, man, I thought you were a runner. I didn't think you did this stuff or something like that. So it was never, to me, it was nothing serious. Like, I never
Right.
took nothing, but just as far as a stereotype or somebody thinking, and I used to have longer hair too, so I just kind of looked like maybe I was, a lot of times people would be like, I thought you were just an engineer or this or that, so.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as anything serious, man, I really haven't experienced it.
Right.
Maybe a comment here or there,
Mm-hmm.
something goofy, but we see those people up on higher levels get that kind of stuff all the time.
All
You
the
got to
time.
be
Yeah.
able to,
Yeah, trust me. We've all got. I think we've all, on either side of the spectrum, no matter what your
yeah.
ethnicity is. I think we've all experienced that. Music is weird because a lot of it is visual, but
Mhm.
a lot of it is what you hear. Like you said, you can hear
Right.
something, and you can hear like a lot of the classic songs from that disco era, the early '80s and '90s. You would listen to it, and you would think the person looked one way, and then when you would see them finally, it's like, huh?
Yeah.
It's like, but the one thing I like about you that I could tell you honestly that I admire is like you seem to have a tenacity that no matter what you're facing, you're still going to get through it.
Yeah, for
You know
sure.
what I mean? And that explains why you're winning. So, with the winning being said, let's break this thing down as far as some of your notable placements. And we're going to go down the list that I have, and I'm sure it's much more extensive, and you can get into that, be my guest.
Right.
But we're going to start, we're going to save the big dog for last.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk to us about Dom Kennedy, who's a very respected lyricist, very respected artist. I think he's underrated. He's one of my favorite artists. Um, how did that placement come about? Let us know what the song was. Let us know if it was released as a single, etc.
That was a track I did with that came through Daz. The
Mm-hmm.
track I did with Daz, Snoop, and Corrupt
Mm-hmm.
when they put out music they were calling themselves just DPGC. So it was a
Right.
DPGC featuring Dom Kennedy. The track was called Bouncing, and I believe that came out in 2011, I believe.
Okay.
They were working on a project, and I had just done a track with the Dog Pound featuring Snoop called what was that song? Forever in a Day.
Mhm.
And so that kind of once that song hit, Daz was hitting me for more stuff. I sent him that one. He got Snoop and Corrupt on it, and then he hit up Dom, and Dom was like, "Oh yeah, he loved it," so he jumped on it. So that was
Mhm.
my first introduction, and I was a fan of his before that. I was like, man, so to have him on it, I was already excited about the Dog Pound stuff, but
Right.
to have him on it, to me, he was like he was a breath of fresh air, and he
Mhm.
kind of kept everybody, on their toes and with that track. So that was my first experience with him, and that was 2011.
Okay.
And
So was that
it's on the Dog Pounds. I think the album's called DPGCology. I think it's
okay?
on. You can stream it through that.
And that led to you working with him as just as a solo artist by himself, or was that
With no placements, I've definitely sent him stuff, but I haven't gotten on any albums yet.
okay? Okay. All right. Next multi-platinum superstar up for bid. Talk to us about Tiger. What was that experience like? How did that come about?
That was another one that came through my man K-Boy, who I had been working with for years.
Mhm.
And I believe we met through MySpace, and those were those early days. And so I'd done a bunch of different tracks with him. And he
Mhm.
hit me one day, and he was like, he just kind of had this style in mind that he wanted. And it was real West Coast, but the drums were a little different. So I'd sent him a track.
Mhm.
He loved it. He hit me back. He's like, yo, I'm going to get Tyga on this. And this was like 07, I would say,
Mhm.
08, early in his career as well. He
Right.
had, he had probably just dropped an album at that time, maybe two, just some mixtape stuff. He was really starting to pop. So he jumped on it and killed it. So that was kind of my introduction. A lot of the stuff with me working with these guys is people that I've built relationships with are like, man,
Mhm.
you got to get on one of these and one of that. So that's how that one came about. And
Mhm.
K-Boy, he's still doing it. We've done quite a bit together. We got a whole album out together that came out last year called Blue Rose. That is him and a joint album with him and a singer out of LA too. So
Okay.
I've stayed, with a lot of the relationships I built, man, from back then, early MySpace days. I still talk to these people and, still do stuff with them. So it's pretty. I like building relationships rather than just, shooting stuff here and there. So
Right. Because that as it serves you over a period of time, which leads to a career and not
right.
just a fly by night situation. That's a smart move. Again, young producers take note. Thank you very much. Um, and of course, we can't let this go without the biggest dog in the yard, the one, the only, the living legend, Snoop Dogg.
Snoop, yeah, man. I had different opportunities with him that were indirect over the years. My
Mm-hmm.
first one being that Forever in a Day with the Dog Pound, and that came about through a video producer, friend of mine named Dada,
Mm-hmm.
and he was doing a lot of Snoop's video back. This was back in, like I said, 2009, 2010. We
Right.
connected, and he was the one that actually put that track together. He got it to the Dog Pound. They got Snoop on it. So that was my first experience. But that, like I said, it was indirect. That was through other people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Fast forward to actually about 2016,
Mm-hmm.
2017, I started working with an artist out in Long Beach named Young Sag. He's a friend
Okay.
of Snoop. He's done a
Mm-hmm.
lot with him. And we started talking on Instagram, using social media again. And so I started sending him beats. He loved it, and we were just working on our own. It had nothing to do with Snoop, had nothing to do with any other artist. I liked him. He loved my stuff, so we
Mm-hmm.
started building. Well, he had dropped a bunch of different stuff, and he started saying, I want to get Snoop some of your stuff. I want to get Snoop some of your stuff. And so I was like, cool, man. I would send him stuff, but it wasn't until I think it was September or something of last year, he hit me up and he's like, yo, Snoop wants this track. And he's like, what do you want for it? And I was like, man, I said, I ain't worried. I said, the money thing, I said, I've been doing it so long without getting anything from stuff. I
Right.
wasn't, my first thought isn't a price for the track.
Mm-hmm.
I said, if you just put us in touch, I said, we'll go from there. Let's just work from there. And
Right.
he's like, cool. I said, I told him, you know, this is on me. You do what you got to do with that track and let's build. So he's like,
Mm-hmm.
cool, man. He'll love that. So that was September. I think in October, he cut that the track, Talk That Shit. Started posting little snippets here and there. People were loving it. And then that's when he first reached out to me personally, hit me up, and he was like, man, I need more stuff. And it was weird. I got an email with a weird number. It was like a text through email. And I was like, I had no idea who it was.
Right.
So I was looking at my phone. I was like, who is this? And then it was saying something like 10 more or something like that. And I was like, what? So then as I was doing it, another one came through and it said, this is Snoop. And I was like, oh man. So I start trying to reply real quick. And all of a sudden my phone starts ringing with that number, and I answer, and he was like, man, I need this. And he goes, I need this track, this and that. And I was like, wow, I was just excited to be talking to him. And he was already thinking about other music. So from there, I started sending him tracks, and we've already recorded. I think we ended up doing Fetty in the Bag, which was the second track off the new album. That was one I did specifically for him. I sat down and did some drums, and I wanted the Eastsiders on it back then. So I had actually reached out to Goldie Loc and talked to him about it. And he loved the track too. Well, Snoop ended up go ahead and doing it real quick. I heard the version. I said, yo, man, I said, it'd be dope to get this to Goldie. He's like, well, send it over. So I sent it to him. He rapped his part. I sent it back. Snoop reached out to Trade E. They got that handled. So it ended up being the Eastsiders back on that track. So, and to me, that's one I would say my biggest track for me personally, just because I love him.
Time out. Let's clarify this, young man. So you're responsible for bringing the Eastsiders back to a degree, as far as reuniting them on Snoop's latest project, just to make sure we understand this.
On there, for sure, yeah.
Okay, what's the name of Snoop's latest album?
From the Streets to the Sweets.
Right. How many placements do you have on there?
I got two. I got the Talk That Shit, which is featuring Cocaine, and Fetty in the Bag, which is Goldie Loc and Trade E as well.
Okay. So Fetty in the Bag and Talk That Shit. I think you are definitely on your way to having a career, my brother.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I really do. I really do. That whole rundown, man, it's like, a lot of producers who are supposed to be, more knowledgeable, much more so seasoned than you are, still haven't touched what you touch. But again, it makes sense because you're not focused on the things you shouldn't be. It seems like you have a grounded level head, and you're focused on the longevity of a business career. So you're making business moves and you're using your business mind, which is a great thing. And that's very rare, as you know, being around this business, that's rare to see. That's just the truth of the matter.
Sure, yeah.
So that's definitely appreciated, man, as a music lover. One last thing before we start to wrap this up, and we do appreciate your time.
Of course.
Talk to us about the Grammy nominations.
Okay. That's another thing. I mean, stuff just, and I think that when you stop, I think you let go of some things. Certain things just open up, man, the opportunities. So with that, it was a situation where I was working with an artist named Jay Boog, and he's from Compton, but he lives in Hawaii. He's a reggae singer, and big hip hop. He loves hip hop, loves West Coast stuff. And we connected back in, I'm trying to think, 2006 or so, I believe. And he was just starting out. This is before he even had an album out. And I actually went to Hawaii with Battle Cat and a few other producers and artists. And we were working on a project out there. And that's when my first introduction to who he was. So fast forward to 10 or so years later, 10, 11 years later, I got a phone call one morning, and he was like, yo, he goes, I got this track. He goes, but I need you to kind of spice it up a little bit. He goes, I just want you to play some stuff, redo the drums, do this and that. So I'm like, okay. So he's like, you think you can get it back to me today? He's like, I got to get it mixed. Well, this was like, I think 9:30 in the morning. I got to get up and get ready for work.
Right.
I work swing shift, so I was getting ready. I was like, all right. I said, give me a minute. So I come in here, and back then I just had a laptop,
Mm-hmm.
and just a MIDI keyboard. So I came in, headphones, I put those on, man. It was just working, just started working, and I ended up knocking it out. And so basically, I'm just playing. Max Perry was the producer who did the original track,
Mm-hmm.
and so I ended up doing all this stuff. I send it back, and he's like, "Yo, I love it. I love it." He's like, "Let me know what you need. I got you, whatever." So I'm like, "Cool, let's just do it. I just want to work." So,
Right.
I don't hear nothing about it. He sends me some references back and forth. Well, then out of the blue, it popped up. He was like, "Yeah, we're dropping this EP. We got this track on it." So it only ended up being a few instruments and stuff that I played on the production. It wasn't the full on drums and everything. They kind of simplified what was there, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was enough to still get credit for doing the track. So that EP, it was an EP called Rose Petals that came out, and that was J Boog, and he it dropped a couple months later. I think I was just on Instagram or something, and I seen a for your consideration for the Grammys, a little thing for the voting, the voters of it. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, that's incredible. I'd never seen nothing like that. So from that point, they vote on it, and then it was literally about 2 months later I saw that it was going to be nominated in the reggae album of the year category. So it was kind of like, wow, it was. I mean, just like I said, out of the blue, something that just one morning get a phone call, jump up, work, get the stuff sent off, and it was about a year later that all came out, and here we are sitting here getting, the invitation to the Grammys and just different stuff, man. It's a crazy. I've learned that whenever like I said, let go, a lot more stuff just happens. It
Right.
doesn't mean stop working. That means
Right.
just don't try to control every aspect of what's going
Mm-hmm.
on.
Stay consistent. So were both nominations in the reggae category for that same project?
Yeah. It
Okay.
was just that one, and it was actually what's crazy is that was a song featuring Snoop Dogg too that I worked on. So Snoop ended up getting on that track, when it came out, it was what's the name of it? I don't even remember the name of the song. Oh, No Pressure, I think it's called.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So did you guys what actually happened with the award itself, and what year was this? Because did you win it? Did you just
No,
receive the
it was
nomination?
I think it was, I don't know if it was Damian Marley. It was a Marley that definitely won that year. I think there was two up against him. So I remember I didn't even end up going. I was here. I was working. I remember going to work and watching the thing on the computer and seeing it come up. But yeah, that was 2018.
Okay.
18, yeah.
Wow. So did you notice after the nominations, did you notice that you started to get more requests for placements, more inquiries about, just submitting your work, more, did anything change, in other words?
Little bit. Just
Okay.
I think it would have been more. I think it would have been more if I had done more or had more hands on in the production of it or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it was more of a smaller role.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, my phone wasn't off the hook or nothing like that, but I think it opened people's eyes to maybe for me, it was the same, but I think other people looked at me differently because they saw, wow, this guy actually got
Right.
part of something bigger,
Oh
the
yeah.
Grammys and this and that. So I think maybe just people's perception of me kind of changed a little bit. But
Right.
as far as big placements, I did get some different independent stuff and artist stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, me and J Boog have definitely been working on some more new stuff. So
Okay.
see, man.
Well, that'll work, man. Did you get your plaques yet? I'm sure some of the stuff that you've been involved in has to be certified by now.
The only plaques I have right now are actually from a stunt I did with Cat back in '05 off the blue carpet treatment.
Okay. Yeah.
I did see that the Snoop album, I think it got up to number 3 on the iTunes hip hop thing. So definitely, man, it's something to be, proud of, and
Oh yeah.
definitely work, like I said, work to outdo this last thing we did.
Mm-hmm. Well, my friend, I think you are on your way. I think you've had a hell of a start. You've created a great foundation. Seems like you also have a great team. Shouts out and salute to the one and only Stan Shepard, who's
Absolutely.
definitely a friend of the show.
Big time.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Now, how's that working out with him in the role he's playing in your career, and let everybody know?
Oh yeah, he's been a part of what I've been doing for a long time. Probably we can go back probably over 10 years, but
Mm-hmm.
he's always very selfless when it comes to opportunities. He's brought me
Mm-hmm.
into, a number of different things, and we've worked on different little compilations together. But I mean, just a good dude that I met through Battle Cat. Battle Cat introduced us,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, encouraging. I mean, like I said, to me, he's like family. He believes in what I do, and he's always pushed me, and he he's quick to connect. And where
Right.
I've seen other people that are like kind of almost hold you back, like he's quick to say, hey, even with this, he's like, I got these guys, man. They're good brothers. I
Mm-hmm.
love them. He goes, I want to put you in touch and get in. It was like that. And a week later, a week and a half later, here we are. So
There you
like I
go.
said, I appreciate him and all he does, man.
Absolutely, man. And we appreciate your time. You got anything to say in closing that you want the people to know? But definitely, if you don't have any comments, definitely let them know where they can find you on social media.
Okay, yeah. On Instagram, it's Amplified One, regular spelling AMPLIFIED 1. That's kind of where I work mainly, man. That's where I showcase a lot of stuff, play new music.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on a new album, just a instrumental project.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Battle Cat got a project coming out that
Mm-hmm.
we've been working on. That's kind of the main thing we worked on over this past year, and just shooting
Okay.
stuff back and forth. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have a release date. I don't have one for mine either, but we're trying to do summertime, man. So within the
Right.
next probably like 2 months, we're trying to get something locked in until we can put this out. And other than that, man, just thank you so much. I appreciate you reaching out, and it means a lot to get on here and talk, man. Get to, you know, myself a little bit.
Understood, man. You got a home here. As we tell everyone, we're trying to do something different in the podcast area ourselves. We approach people, we approach this business because people don't realize how hard it is in every aspect of this business, and particularly when you're independent and it's an everyday fight. And a lot of times I think the fans see the glitz and the glamour, they don't see the struggle. So our approach is, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, you're part of this culture. We're embracing you. We're not pushing you away. We don't do the gossip thing. This is not the forum to come on if you want to start beef in the streets and back. We don't have the time for that. We're trying to do business. We're trying to embrace this culture because it's our culture. It's the lives that we all live,
Right.
So you definitely are more than welcome to come back here at any time. Hit me up. If you got something you want to say, you want to talk about as far as a new project, a new collaboration, anything you want to push and promote, Stan is family to this show. He's a friend, to the show. So, I mean, that puts you under the same umbrella. We're here if you need us for anything, man, because I look forward to the day when you are sitting at the top of your game, but in our forum, and even with the relaunch of SMG, we're right there as well. And we can all look back and say, we remember when. You
Yeah,
know what I
exactly.
mean?
Right.
So we definitely welcome you back at any time. To your success, and we will be in touch. Like I said, you got a forum here. Anytime you want to come and hang out, we're here, man. We'll definitely be in touch. That's for sure. All
For sure,
right.
man. Likewise, man. Thank you.
All right. Salute.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.